Hello, I got asked a very interesting question the other day. What was my opinion on the long bite or the test of courage with IGP dogs? This question started to tap into my nerd brain now. And of course, I remember there was a research paper that was looking into the bite force of various dogs that are involved in bite work or protection work. And they took 20 dogs from the Finnish police department. There were 7 German Shepherds and 13 Malinois that they looked at. The test was conducted as a modified long attack. And what they did is they asked the dogs to run over a 25-meter distance and then bite the sleeve, just like we would practice for our dogs in the long bite. So there were a lot of various components. But a takeaway from the research was the following, and I found this to be the most interesting, is that they tested also the acceleration and deceleration gravitational force that the dogs experience when performing the long bite. So they were looking at the G-force, essentially. And what they found was there was an average and a maximum G-force that they recorded. On acceleration, the average G-force that the dogs experienced was 7.1 Gs, which went to a maximum of 11.6. And then on deceleration, the average G-force that dogs experienced was 9.2 Gs to a maximum of 13.1 G-force. That is unreal, especially when you consider that the average Formula One racing car driver experiences G-force of 4 to 6 Gs in his car. And then your fighter pilot, they will train to a maximum of 9 Gs. It is huge, the tension that they have to put their muscles under, and our fighter pilots are even wearing those special suits to combat the G-forces that are placed on the body, just to stop them from passing out in general. So if you take that G-force of a fighter pilot that they train at, 9 Gs, and then G-forces of a Formula One racing car driver, maximum of 6 Gs, and consider the G-forces that their bodies experience is between 7.1 and 13.1 G-forces just in this modified long attack, which was only over 25 meters. What is the dog's body going through? If the dog is going through these G-forces, right, the dog runs, bites the sleeve, and then the helper has to absorb some of the impact, turn the dog, and land the dog safely. Consider the torque placed on the body as a dog hits the sleeve and then turns. We've all heard sometimes that grunt the dog makes as they hit the sleeve and on the turning because of the torque placed on the body as the dog turns. So that pulling sensation from head to tail, the whole spine is being pulled on just from the associated with that G-force. And then the back legs are out from underneath the dogs. They're generally out there in the air. And we've all been on those merry-go-rounds as a thing is spinning, and we can feel that sensation. Now that's what's going through with the dogs. Now imagine the strength required to keep that spine aligned, as well as bringing the back legs in from underneath the dog in order for the dog to land correctly. Imagine the strength required in those hip flexors and iliopsoas and core muscles just to bring those back legs in to land. Now, when we do IGP heads-up heel work, we already are compromising our dog's back legs just with muscle imbalances, etc. The hamstrings generally become short and tight, hip flexors are short and tight, etc. So now these dogs have to use those muscles to bring themselves in for that landing. It is unreal what their bodies go through and what we enjoy work with them. They also enjoy doing it though. But we need to be cognizant of what we're putting their bodies through. Within this research paper, they also found that the average launch distance from launching to hitting the sleeve between the two breeds were quite different. Malinois tended to launch within 1.4 meters of the sleeve, while German Shepherds would launch just under half a meter from the sleeve. And then we have to look at where some people will place an obstacle between the helper and the dog, so the dog launches over this obstacle in order to hit the sleeve. But now we have to consider what is a dog's natural tendencies. And then also, why do some people put these launching obstacles in front of the dog for the long bite? For me, generally, it is because the dogs are not launching properly to hit the sleeve for the long bite. And so they'll place this obstacle there in order to force the dog to launch. I would say, consider why is the dog not launching properly. I will always first look at the body. Some of the dogs are not launching properly because maybe they can't. Maybe they've got some compromises in their body. Like, for example, the back legs, which generally are compromised just by way of training. If our dog's hamstrings are short and tight, that will 100% compromise their launch. If their iliopsoas is short and tight, it will 100% compromise their launching ability. So before we just place obstacles in front of a dog, force them to launch for a long bite, if they are struggling with the launch, they will absolutely compensate in order to get over the obstacle and then perform their long bite. But then they're also using different muscles that are there to assist them in the launch instead of the proper muscles that should be launching the dog to do this exercise. So we have to apply our minds, look at what's happening with the dog, and then strengthen those areas to help them launch correctly. So when we look at this information, which for me was absolutely fascinating, we have to consider all the things that our dogs' bodies go through in order to do our sport. It's very exciting, it's very interesting, but it also shows us that we need to prepare their bodies for the sport that we do. Especially when you see some of these videos of the dogs launching and swinging very tightly into that twist in order for them to land, or sometimes they come off the sleeve, or whatever the case may be. We need to prepare their bodies so that they are less likely to become injured too soon. So let me know your thoughts.